Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 2020 Lamborghini Huracán Evo. Now this is part of the facelift that came about in 2019, and yeah, it's not just a facelift but also a mechanical update, and yeah, this is 5 years after the standard Huracán was released. And yeah, it's a combination of the standard Huracán, the Performanté variant of that Huracán, and new elements to the car as a whole, not just in terms of the looks but also the mechanics. And yeah, it does though share the same engine, gearbox and rear styling as the Performanté, as it has the same rear diffuser, same exhaust pipe positions and the same radiators, but yeah, it does have a more aggressive design language at the front. As you can see, it's definitely improved somewhat at the front there, and yeah, it's also got a aero blades for improved downforce at the front. You can see them there, and yeah, it's also got a new duct spoiler that improves the downforce that the car generates by 5 times over the original car, as well as has rear wheel steering to improve turning and general handling. But yeah, the car generally is the same as the standard Huracán. Got the same miserable amount of boot space, as you'll see if we can get it open. Where's the prompt? I'll just explode it instead then. But yeah, it's still got the same miserable amount of boot space. But yeah, the interior looks a little bit different and a little bit better. It's got a better LCD screen behind the steering wheel there. But generally it's pretty much as standard in terms of Lamborghini vehicles, especially more mid-tier vehicles like this. But yeah, the engine, like I said, is the same as the Performanté, so it's still a 5.2 litre V10 engine producing 630 horsepower and 442 pounds-feet of torque. Now that is the same as the Performanté, but it is 28 horsepower more than the standard Huracán and 29 pounds-feet of torque more as well, so a decent improvement on that car. It also weighs the same as the standard Huracán at 3,422 pounds, so it's not lugging around any extra weight despite having extra power. But unfortunately it is 89 pounds heavier than the Performanté, and yeah, that's the kind of the start of this car's troubles. It is basically feels like a lesser Performanté in a lot of ways. Less, you know, exciting to look at because it doesn't have as big a rear spoiler, for instance, or nice big gold wheels or anything like that. It's just a bit more ordinary. Not quite as ordinary as a standard Huracán by any means, but definitely just comes across as more ordinary. And the fact that it weighs more than the Performanté and doesn't have as good a handling despite the rear wheel steering, nor is it as quick because of that extra weight, it feels like a bit of a step down, to be honest. But yeah, nonetheless, let's get out onto the open road and see what this car can do. So even though this is slower than the Performanté, it's still not a slow car in general by any means, as we will see now. So this is the interior. It's definitely got a different kind of LCD screen setup over the Performanté, and yeah, as you can see, it is no slouch in terms of acceleration. It should get up to about 150 here. Yeah, 154. Which is actually pretty much the same kind of speed as the Performanté was getting up to when I did the same drag strip part there. So yeah, even though it's not as quick in terms of 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 time, at the end of the day it doesn't really matter, because at the end of the acceleration is only part of what this car has. Because obviously once you get past 100 miles an hour, the weight really isn't playing much of a role. It's more about the power and the torque, and since the power and the torque is the same, that is ultimately where yeah, this car is best outside of the 100 plus mile an hour range. It's yeah, pretty much the same as the Performanté. Where this is different is obviously the rear wheel steering and the fact that it's not as outrageous to look at, which, yeah, whether or not that's something you like or not, well, that's on you, but me personally, I do prefer the outrageous looks of the Performanté, as you can see here. So yeah, that's the weight difference and differences in stats. 42% at the front for this, over 43% for the Huracán Performanté. So it's a little bit you know, more rear bias than the Performanté was. But these are the stats overall. As you can see, still pretty damn good. 7.6 handling and 7.4 braking is really rather solid. 10 launch, 9.3 acceleration and 7.3 speed. But this is against the Performanté. As you can see, the handling is better, acceleration is better, the braking is better, and the top speed is better as well. Not by a wide margin, by any means. I imagine the Evo would still be pretty damn quick around a track, but whether or not it's going to be as quick as a Performanté, you'd have to try out that yourself. But yeah, with the looks of the Performanté being better, and the stats being better, and it being weighing less, it's hard to feel like the Evo isn't a step down, to be honest. And in all honesty, I would have preferred had we got the Evo rear-wheel drive version, because there is a rear-wheel drive version only of this, which weighs less than this does. Yes, it has the same amount of horsepower and torque as a standard Huracan, but it would at least feel like a different car, because it's only got rear-wheel drive. And yeah, unlike the previous, V10 powered rear-wheel drive Lamborghini, it has more power going to the rear, because in the old one, I can't remember the name of it exactly, but it cut torque back any opportunity it saw fit, just to stop the car from oversteering, whereas that is no longer the case, so therefore it's able to oversteer a lot more. But yeah, that's a car I would have preferred, or even the Evo Spider or the Evo rear-wheel drive Spider, because those are also available. Or I think it's the STO that is also available, that is a form of Huracan out there as well, which is supposed to be even more insane to drive. This just feels a bit, of a first step on the new Huracan, line of cars. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame, but it is still a really, really good car. This, no doubt about that. 0 to 60 in 3.1 seconds, 0 to 100 in 6.4 seconds, and it will go into a top speed of 204 miles an hour. And it still sounds pretty damn good. It is a naturally aspirated V10, no turbochargers holding this baby back, and yeah, still revs really rather freely as well. I'll let you listen to the engine for a little bit if you've not heard this engine before, and then we'll talk about the rear wheel steering. So yeah, still sounds pretty damn good. Now I'm going to show you off the rear wheel steering, because it is actually simulated in this game. So you can hopefully see the rear wheels moving there. It's obviously only ever so slightly, it's only a couple of degrees or so. It's purely there just to improve turning and improve stability when necessary. But the fact that they're able to simulate it is pretty damn good as far as I'm concerned. I wasn't expecting that from this car, because we have had vehicles with rear wheel steering before, but they necessarily haven't been simulated. But yeah, I hope you can see that. I'm trying my best to show it off, but yeah, you can definitely see that the wheels are moving, which is, yeah, really rather nice to see. And it doesn't mean that the rear wheel steering is actually playing a part in this car, rather than just being something that is, only limited to real life. So yeah, it's a good car, no doubt about that. It's a really rather superb supercar. It's, going to be something that you could live with every day, but at the end of the day, it's also something that's more powerful than the standard Huracan. It's better handling, it weighs exactly the same, and yet it's also got more downforce, front and rear, and it's a little bit more aggressive in terms of its styling. I just don't think it's as good as the Performanté is, which, considering that car is now, coming up to 4 years old, you would have expected this to have been at least a step up in regards of, horsepower, less weight, better and more mad styling, but unfortunately it is not. I do look forward to seeing if they do a more insane version of this, because this at the end of the day feels like, the entry level Huracan nowadays, rather than the one we got back in 2014. But yeah, I would have preferred, at least if we're going to have a version of this, I would have preferred just to have the rear wheel drive version, because that is supposed to be not only really fun, but a remarkably different kind of feeling car than the standard Huracan is, whereas this does, on the most part, just feel like the Huracan, just a little bit quicker, and yeah, better in terms of handling. So yeah, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that are going to enjoy this car, and I'm happy for them, and I wouldn't change it, because at the end of the day, more new cars to the series is only a good thing. I just would have preferred it to have been something a bit different from the Huracan overall. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.